And good morning, my beautiful America. Welcome back to the All American Book Club. Ladies and gentlemen, we are in the month of October. Yes, the lazy, hazy days of not October, August. I can tell you, I am so excited about my pumpkin spice lattes. And I'm dying for October to be here. So, anyway, all that to say, we are bringing over to the show for the first time Dr. Susan Michael. She is the USA Director, International Christian Embassy, Jerusalem. Now, let me tell you about Susan. I have such the honor and privilege to work with Susan. But one thing I absolutely love about her is we're focusing in the month of August, the adventurous women who have trailblazed from sea to shining sea and globally. And Susan is one of the top people I chose for this series here at the All American Book Club. So if you would please help me welcome to the show for the very first time, Dr. Susan Michael. I am so glad to have you here. And can you tell I'm so ready for October and coffee? Oh my gosh, pumpkin spice lattes. I'm so glad to have you here. And I'm for those on the YouTube channel, I'm highlighting Encounter 3D Bible. Susan, I first want the audience to hear all about you. Just the powerful story of what took you from your southern roots to Israel. It's such a unique story that this next generation needs to be inspired by.
Well, Eden, first of all, it's great to be with you today and with your listening audience and mutual appreciation for you. So thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.
Yeah, my story isn't your typical everyday story. However, it is very typical in certain ways. And I really try to encourage young people with my story, just to say, you may not have it all charted out in your life, and that's okay.
Mhm.
Just pray and be sure that the step you're taking today is in His will, because that will get you in the right place for tomorrow's step. And He'll reveal to you His will. And that's really what happened to me when I was 16 going on 17 and I gave my life to the Lord. I prayed this very innocent prayer. I said, Lord, I'll go anywhere you want me to go, and I'll do
Yeah.
anything you want me to do. Now, I never dreamt that it would take me out of my hometown, for sure not out of my home state. I didn't have any international aspirations or interest whatsoever, but I really meant what I prayed. And so, step by step, I ended up going away to Oral Roberts University, becoming a Bible major there in college. And I tell people that, I already read my Bible every day. It's like a spiritual guidebook to just see what direction I'd get for how to live my life. But now at university, I'm studying it every day as a doctrinal book, as for the piece of literature that it is, and learning how to rightly read it within proper context and all. And so while at university, I heard about students that had studied abroad during the summer, and I thought, wow, that's a great idea, have fun and earn credit at the same time.
Yeah.
That's about how spiritual my interest was. It was like, that sounds like fun. And then I thought, well, now where would I go to study? Well, the land of the Bible, because
Mhm.
I'm a Bible major. I knew nothing about Israel. I don't think that I even knew that it hadn't been there for 2,000 years. I didn't know any of the history, nothing, just that it was the land of the Bible. And I went to a professor in my school of theology there. And I said, do you know any study programs in Israel? Because I'm thinking about going there. And he said, yes, and go if at all possible, because it will change your life. I had picked out the one professor in the whole school that had a relationship with a school in Jerusalem. It's an American based school with an American board of directors, but it's based right there, right outside the old city of Jerusalem, and he knew what he was talking about.
Yeah.
So the next summer, I went over for a summer study program, and that's when my Bible just totally came alive.
Mhm.
It's like it stands up on its own feet, flesh and bones. You're surrounded by prophecy fulfilled. You understand just how true the Bible is and how accurate it is.
Mhm.
And that's life changing.
Mhm.
And so after I had that wonderful experience, I decided that as soon as I finished my bachelor's degree, I wanted to go back and study more because I wanted more of that experience. And that's
Mhm.
how I arrived back in Jerusalem in August of 1980. and stepped right into the middle of a historic moment and the beginning of a ministry. So many aspects to this story, but that is how I ended up there in Israel. I studied another 2 years, got a master's degree,
Mhm.
and by then it was just done and over. Israel became my passion. The Jewish people were my passion, and it has lasted a lifetime.
Well, I mean, look at the legacy, 35 years that you have been on the ground, on the front lines over there, representing so well and being a part of it, understanding the Jewish people, meeting your husband as another story I want to talk about. And I love this story, but you were there at such a pivotal time in history. And as you look at the front lines of what was happening in America at that time, you have Ronald Reagan coming in during that time period in the early 80s, being that president during that time period. And, just I can see how you have educated a generation on the importance of Israel. You have brought the Bible to life for a generation. And when I received the Encounter of the 3D Bible, I want to make sure that the audience goes and picks this up. You can buy it on Amazon. It's so easy. You, it's like you are when you read through this book, it's like you're walking through all the different places that you have journeyed to. And it makes an impact. And I think this is what it's going to take to rise up the church here, to wake up the church to everything that you are fighting for. And one of those things is combating the anti-Semitic aspects of what's happening here in our universities and our schools around the nation. But I'm jumping ahead because I get so excited when I talk to you about these things, and you have such knowledge. So let's go back for a second. I want to hear first. Let's do a little bit of romance. Let's do a little romance. I want you to share a little bit about the powerful story of how you and your husband met, and then how his calling and your calling, God just really married that together.
Well, I did step into two amazing moments in history when I arrived there in Israel. One was in 78, 79, 80. You're talking about the revolution in Iran, American hostages being held by Iran. That whole thing was blowing up. How my parents let me go in the midst of all that disruption, I didn't even know what was going on, but I was so oblivious to things. But at the same time, we have the peace accord that was happening between Egypt and Israel.
Mhm.
And so I had never been to Egypt. I really didn't have any interest in Egypt or the Arab world. But now that I'm studying there in Israel, and you're surrounded by archaeology, and a couple from some of the guys from the school had gone down to Egypt for a week and seen the pyramids and all, and they came back talking about it. So a couple of us female students said, "Well, hey, we want to go too." So we
Mhm.
joined at that point. There were a lot of Israeli tour groups going down to Egypt because this peace accords had just been signed. Egypt had just opened up as a friendly country, and they
Mhm.
were going down by the busloads every week. And so we signed up for one of those, rode the bus, yes, rode the bus from Jerusalem to Cairo. It was a good 10 or 12-hour bus trip. And you go down south and you go right across the top of the Sinai Desert and then enter into Egypt. And what I didn't know then, but I know now, is I'm very sensitive to dust.
Mhm.
And by the time we arrived in Cairo, I had a head full of desert dust. You don't even see it. You don't even know it's there, but you're breathing it in. And my sinuses were full. My head felt twice as big as normal. So as soon as we checked into the hotel, I asked where there was a pharmacy. And they said, "Oh, it's very easy." And they said, "You go right out the door, go right." We were on a small alley, that at the end of the alley, just go straight across the big highway, straight into the door of a pharmacy. And
Mhm.
I remember it so well because it was just such easy directions, and crossing this huge highway, about 6 lanes of traffic in Cairo, where they have their own traffic laws. They're not like ours. But I noticed that about half of the cars had their lights coming on. So that meant it was late afternoon. It was roughly 4 or 5 o'clock, in the afternoon. And I go straight into the door of the pharmacy, and this young man, pharmacy with a white pharmacy coat on, waited on me. And I only knew to ask for antibiotics because at that point, I just didn't know. I thought I was getting sick. I didn't know it was allergy. And so he gives me my medicine, and I turn around and go back, and that was it. Well, we had a week there in Egypt, and I came away saying, well, I'm glad I did that, but I'm never going back to Egypt. And I had this love-hate relationship with Egypt. The people are wonderful.
Mm.
There's a good deal of dust and there's a good deal of pollution in Cairo. It's a huge city. So it's not the best place for me and my sinuses. And I just thought, well, I'll never go back.
Mhm.
And fast forward, what, 2 years later, I end up moving to Washington, D.C., which we can come back to that story later. And in Washington, D.C., the Lord miraculously opens a door for me to teach Sunday school at an Arabic church in
Mm.
Washington, D.C. Yes, I taught in English. The Sunday school is all in English, but the main worship service is actually in Arabic. And I'm there teaching, and in comes this very attractive, good looking young man from Egypt. And we meet, we build a relationship, and eventually we marry. And after we were married, one day I thought about this story and I tell him the story. And he said, wait a minute. I know that pharmacy. My husband had gone to pharmaceutical school. He was a pharmacist, but he actually was working in pharmaceutical sales. And
Mhm.
that pharmacy is in a building full of doctors. And every afternoon he would go to that pharmacy, which was owned by a friend from pharmacy school. And he'd help wait on customers while he waited for the doctors to come and go. And he'd talk to the doctors about the medicines and do his business. And so for years we said, I wonder if that was you. I wonder if he was the one that helped me, or was it his friend? And Eden, we can all laugh about this. But after 34 years of marriage, one day I'm bringing the story up again, and he says, well, wait, now was that pharmacist heavy or was he thin? I said, oh no, he was thin. He said, well, then that was me because my friend was very heavy. And I said, it took you 34 years to remember that key detail, women and our specificity on the details. I had met him. He had served me. He had taken care of me with medicine. And that's what he's done now our whole married life. But
Mhm.
it is quite an unusual story.
Well, it is, it's no, it's a beautiful story, but it's truly, um, I love how God brought you guys together. And I'm wanting to highlight that for a reason. This audience here is encompassing of all young Capitol Hill staff members. And they always sit and say, who am I going to meet the right person? How am I going to meet the right person? And you sharing that story of being a trailblazer in your own right and being able to, God still placed the right person in your path, in his path. And I just wanted to highlight that because of the young minds that we're impacting here. I also want to impact the young minds through, if they are struggling to understand the Bible, if they are struggling to say, well, I see all these world events happening, but help me understand. Or they could be at the highest levels of government, serving our elected leaders, but yet don't have that anchor and that biblical foundation. So if you could give me a few highlights from the book, I'm going to hold it up again for the YouTube channel audience. What are the top three things we can instill in this new generation?
Well, I first want to just explain the reason I wrote that book because so many of us today don't know how to connect the dots in the Bible when it comes to Israel, the Jewish people and the church, the Arabs, the Jews, the land, and we hear all these theories.
Right.
And there some of them are just not biblical, the theories, but a lot of people believe them and think that they are. And so I wanted to write this book to help connect the dots for those things, to explain God's
Mhm.
calling on the Jewish people and God's calling on the church, and also to instill that understanding of the Arab people and God's love for the Arab people, and yet to recognize the biblical calling on the Jewish people and to help put those together. And in my life, certainly, I've had to grapple with all that and pull it together as I'm married to someone from the Arab speaking world
Right.
who, and we have a love for the Arab people and the entire Middle East, but yet an appreciation for God's calling on the Jewish people and that He has brought them back to their land in our days. And we need to stand in support of that. And why did He bring them back to the land? Why is that land so important? So,
Mhm.
those are the kinds of things that I deal with in the book in a very, very easy to read format. It's
Mhm.
not complicated, it's not heavy, it's the basics. Once they read that Bible, they're now ready to
Mhm.
start studying their Bible. They
Mhm.
understand the playing field. We have to just understand the big picture first. Then we
Yes.
can start diving in. And so that's the approach of that book.
A final word. We have about 3 minutes left in the episode, but I wanted to get from you, what is one thing that you would love to share with this new generation? As we see so many college students not even understanding what's really happening here in this historical moments. And in many ways, you are one of those Esters. You are, it's this time or now, or not at all.
Well, they have to understand that the issues of surrounding Israel and the Middle East are not easy things to be portrayed in one image, one sentence, short social media clip.
Mhm.
There's some of the issues go back thousands of years and have such a complicated history. And at the same time that they're historical, they're also political, but they can also be theological all at the same time. And so it's not easy to understand it all. And therefore, don't think that you can just go by a simple
Mhm.
one social media post, one graphic image. And now
Mm,
I'm so worried about what's happening with images, videos, AI. We're getting to where we can't believe anything we even see.
yes.
And so this is the age where we find those trusted voices, those
Mhm.
trusted ministries, the trusted leaders that we
Mhm.
know they know their stuff, and we rely on them to help us filter it all. And
Mhm.
so I invite all your listeners, to sign up for our emails, our mailings, we have all kinds of educational resources, and
Mhm.
let us be their guide.
No, absolutely. And what I'll do for this episode, I will share with our audience and all of our social channels the ways that they can sign up to join, follow you, and get all of your guides. Because this is just one of many books that you have written. I have this other one, Every Generation's Story. I also have this one that has your very powerful story in here as well, stepping into history. So for all of those who are tuning in, I want them to pick these up and go to Amazon, get them, and also support you. Final note, I always ask this, especially to all the women I bring on this show. What is one Bible verse that has inspired you that you would love to share as words of inspiration for this audience, old, young, in between, in their in between moments, if they're not even hearing God's whisper, what would you say as an encouraging word?
Wow, there are so many. um, I think that, there's the whole book of Isaiah is amazing and full of so many encouraging words. But the one that says that I will not be silent,
Mhm.
for Zion's sake, I will not, keep silent. That has been sort of a trademark for me, that we must have the boldness and the courage to speak up and to take a stance, and especially in this day and age, and this generation we're speaking to,
Mhm.
they need to be prepared to be leaders for truth, the truth, not propaganda, not causes, but the
Right.
truth of God's word and how it relates to our world, and to speak up and do not be silent.
Amen to that. Perfect way to end this amazing segment of Adventurous Women, Dr. Susan Michael. I'll leave it here. Be strong, be courageous, and put on the full armor of God. Thank you so much for your amazing testimony to sharing with us today.
Thank you. It's great to be with you again.
Absolutely. And for all those who are tuning in, stay tuned. We'll be right back for our next segment.